All right, everybody. We are back with Dr. Joanna Kujawa. I really, this is going to be a really special one for me. I feel like I hit the jackpot finding you. And I have both of your books on my nightstand. And I just wish there were more hours in the evening where I could read them. I just find them, I can't put them down. And just so grateful for you coming on. I don't even want to waste a second I have with you because I have so many things I want you to share with us and teach us. But let's just jump right in to your awakening experience. I know you've been asked about this a million times before, but I would love for you to share with my audience, who I don't believe is familiar with you, basically what that experience, what are the main takeaways? Because, you know, Kundalini rising and all the Tantra, and this is really kind of vogue right now. But I've heard you clarify some key things about how it was different for you, really what you want people to know about your awakening.
Okay, so so because in the book I really described two awakenings. So please clarify. Do you want me to talk about the tantric one or the original one and the tantric one that follow through?
The latter. So kind of both of them, because to me it kind of was, yeah.
All right. So first, maybe just it's actually good to contextualize, right? One, because one comes from the other. So I was already on a spiritual path, but I arrived in Australia and to finish my PhD. And I went to a program with a guru, right? I didn't know much about him. I didn't know that I just know he was from Indian Shaivite alternative esoteric Hindu tradition. And I went through what they called Shakti path, which is basically Kundalini awakening. And I had and I didn't know what it was. So I basically came in my yoga outfit. I thought it would be a yoga class. So, so, you know, I went through the ritual, which is actually very beautiful ritual, awakening initiation, but I didn't know about it. And as the ritual was going through, and there were maybe 200 people there, I had a very powerful meditation. And as the teacher touched me on my forehead, suddenly I had a experience of whole space collapsing on me and then expanding, you know, so the room collapsed on me and then expanded. And I had immense sense of grief and then joy, right? And I started to feel Kundalini moving through my body and I couldn't control it. So it was very powerful because here I was in front of 200 people. Everybody had the same ritual, but, you know, I went through this really dramatic, theatrical awakening when I couldn't do anything, crying and laughing. And so that was original experience, right, with the teacher. And since then, I started, because of a connection with this teacher and my own academic connections, I started to study a tantric work called Tantra Loka, which is the Light of Tantras, which is a 10th century tantric work by a Indian philosopher, like the great, you know, like Renaissance thinker, let's put it this way, who wrote many things, Abhinavagupta, 10th century teacher and a philosopher. So I was studying, you know, I was in the study group, I was the only woman, and there was a Catholic priest who just had a PhD in Sanskrit, and he translated this work, you know, Kula Ritual, which is a tantric work about how sexuality can lead to enlightenment, written by Abhinavagupta, by one Swami, and there was one Tibetan monk who just, you know, joined us, and he couldn't speak much English, but he wanted to participate in this. And me, you know, so I was the only Shakti there. So that was very much kind of scholarly discussion, right? So we are going page by page of this extremely convoluted text, because I just want to tell you that most of this kind of texts are misunderstood simply because of two reasons. One of them, they were already written to be encoded, so only the initiated understand it. Okay, so that's why I say it's already. And also the translation was almost impossible. So I'm just so grateful that I was with somebody who actually translated it, right? So we were meeting once per month, and then somebody would drive me home, or I would take a train, a train back home. And one evening when I was coming back, this is what I think you're referring to, right? One evening when I was coming back from this study, my boyfriend at the time was waiting for me. I didn't invite him, which he's just waiting for a bunch of flowers, right? And what happened after that, we were engaged in an erotic act, right? And as we were engaged in an erotic act, I started to have a very powerful Kundalini awakening, which later I had to study because I had to explain what happened to me and what happened to him. So it was interesting in the sense that, I started to feel very strong movement of Kundalini, exactly like as it is described, but it's difficult to imagine. A very powerful but very wise energy moving along my spine, right? And it was uncontrollable. And it stopped in my heart and exploded. But exploded, temporarily stopped in my heart because later it moved on. It exploded, but in a way that was physically visible. So I was lit up like a bulb, so actually there was a light around me, right? And that, of course, mildly freaked out, the man who was with me, but because he was also he was a spiritual person in his own terms, he understood that something very special, something amazing and deeply spiritual is actually happening under this rather unusual circumstances, right? So this light, also spilled on him, and he started to feel bliss as well, because not only that I was lit up, but I started to feel this transcendental bliss, of great sweetness. And not like in my first, initial awakening, that it was very strong opposite emotions like grief and laughter, but very deep, kind of almost like divine bliss. I had no other words for this. And it started to spill on him, and I saw him, and we're both like very meditative for a moment, right? And then the energy started to move up again, and it stopped in my forehead. It was very powerful. And it stopped in my forehead, but it wasn't intrusive. But it also felt, it's quite interesting, because people ask me about it. I knew it was me, but I knew it was also not me. It was bigger than me, but it was somehow me too. So it wasn't like some entity entered me, No, it was like, it was me, but like on a, I don't know, me in a divine, as a part of a divine source, maybe like a higher self entering me, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it moved to my forehead, and that paused for a moment. And almost like I could see, it's just funny to say it, I could feel it thinking, like it felt like almost, okay, either I turn this way or that way. And if I turn, if I just stop, it would be just a nice, kind of orgasmic experience. Or I can give her awakening. And it actually gave me the awakening because it exploded now in my forehead. And it spilled again on my partner, who went, and we were in a meditative state for quite a while, like 20, 30 minutes actually, when we came out of this. And for me, I was in a state of bliss for about 3 months, from which I couldn't, so it wasn't like just walking on air, like something nice happens erotically for 3 months. But not only that, and I was almost dysfunctional, meaning I was in such a state of bliss that, I couldn't, I don't know how I managed to actually take care of myself, which I did, right? And there were just some interesting things happening. So for example, I remember I was standing at a bus stop, and I could see, there was palms and beautiful parrots, because I live in Australia. And there were just more like particles of energy, like these colorful particles of energy, but everything was not really physical. I could see everything as energy, right? So this lasted for maybe around 3 months. So I think this is the awakening that you were asking about, right? Because it was a very sensual awakening. And also, when I continued to study Tantra and this particular text, which is the classic Indian Tantra, not what is being taught in the West or what is being taught even in a Chinese Tantra, which is very different. I just want to tell people that Chinese Tantra is very often about longevity and is actually male-oriented.
Yeah, the emperor.
Yeah, that's right. But this Tantra is not about longevity. It is about enlightenment. It is about having the experience of the divine. Because if you're truly connected to the divine, you don't care about longevity. Do you understand? Like you just see like you're just a particle of energy, and this is one particle.
Irrelevant. Yeah.
And it completely restructures your whole view of the world and of your life, right? So it's deeply transformative experience. So when I, just to go back to the study, then I realized that unwillingly, although I am very committed, whatever I do, I call myself spiritual detective because I want to also play down, my own ego with all of this and so on, right? But I am very committed. Once I do something, I can be quite obsessive, like I focus on it. This is what makes a good researcher. So I realized that unwillingly I follow certain criteria that are mentioned in Tantra Loka. So for example, it says you have to study the sacred texts, which I did, right? And with great commitment, right? So I was doing it regularly, and then the energy of the text enters you, okay? Then according to this is, I have to say, it's an extremely controversial method, so I'm not saying that people, have to or have not to do it. It is that it says that it can happen, not only erotically, but it can happen during the erotic encounter. And in fact, chapter 29 is talking about how it happens during the erotic encounter. And very often it happens when you're in a relationship which is not necessarily committed. And I know some people are going to have issues with this. I'm not against committed relationships. I am in one myself. But for this to happen, very often it is an uncommitted relationship. And in Tantra Loka, Abhinava Gupta is talking about it, because there cannot be any attachment. Okay, so that's why, and I know it is controversial, because it's not about pleasing yourself, pleasing your partner. It is kind of you allowing this process to happen. It's almost like it somehow happens objectively.
I was just going to say that you have to be objective. Yeah.
Yes, you have to allow it for this to happen without, thinking about consequences. Are we going to get married? Does this person actually like it? What's going?
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to call him tomorrow? None of this.
Yeah.
And because I was just after the study group, I was in this already heightened state of consciousness. But also, to be truly honest, I was not particularly attached to this relationship, and this relationship didn't last, in fact, right? It was a relationship I was very briefly in at that moment, and this is what, it's funny that it became almost like
lucky guy.
Yeah, a tool for this awakening, which actually gave him a very powerful experience. Fortunately, he had spiritual beliefs, so actually he understood what was going on. And now just a little bit more, if you don't mind, on this topic, because later I was also reading work by Daniel Odier, who is a very famous French author and also tantric teacher and tantric practitioner, and also in the 90s he was famous film director in France and so on. He's like larger than life kind of personality. And I had an interview, I interviewed him and I read his books, who is also translator of different tantric works. From the Hindu tradition, not from the Buddhist, Taoist traditions. And his recent work actually says, and this confirms my experience, that the woman is actually carrier of a Shakti Kundalini. And then the man, and this is what also in Tantra Loka is suggested, that the man is the happy receiver of that. So I don't want to disappoint any man, and I'm not saying that they cannot get it without it, but the fact is, when in a traditional Hindu tradition, tradition of Tantra, men had to have a woman to have an enlightening experience through erotic act. Because according to this particular work that Daniel Odier translated, it is encoded within a woman's biology, so to speak, like energetic field, maybe not only biology, energetic field, right? And then once a woman is safe, and this somehow happens, which is I still believe it's an act of grace. Okay, because I don't think I'm not this kind of person who would even know how to repeat this kind of experience. Okay, so it's not like that. And people ask, so what do you do? And I feel like I actually didn't do anything. I just opened up to this experience and it happened, right?
Well, you were prepared. You laid the groundwork
Yeah,
with the studying the scripture.
That's right. Thank you. So I fulfilled the criteria, so to speak, but it's not like I did something, because people want to say, like, did you do special breathing? What did you do with your hands? Did you like?
It was like you plowed the fields and you prepared the soil, and then
That's right.
game on.
That's right. And also, what I learned from Daniel Odier is, because very often people ask me, what do you do? What are tantric methods, which are again very often coming from Taoist or Buddhist traditions, and they're always about men. And then, I learn, like, for example, how to delay ejaculation and so on. And I learn from Daniel Odier and from other works, of Hindu tradition, that it is, because it is natural for a woman, it's in her field, the other techniques that are focused on men, it is so a man can delay it so he can actually experience it. Instead of going, through like, immediate ejaculation, let's say, right? So that's why it is about men. So he can participate in this, beautiful thing that is going through a woman's body, but is completely spiritual, but is triggered by an erotic act.
Okay, so the woman's body is considered the vessel, right?
It's absolutely a vessel for this, yes.
Okay, and I know we're going to get into, like, Catholicism and all that, but it seems like that was always the way. Even, I don't know, maybe if Hinduism was the origin of that concept, but in my studies of the feminine, all the cultures thought of the woman's body as the vessel. And so again, I don't know if it originated with the Hinduism, but I don't know, esoterically. But it's just been amazing to me, Joanna, how it's so consistent. They all thought, I mean, across continents, like these cultures, and we didn't have the internet, you know what I mean? Like, how was this like a consistent theme that the woman's body was the vessel and the man had to go through the woman? And I think I've heard you almost term it as the man would have to almost kind of liberate that energy in the woman. So to me, I think of that as, okay, so that's the perfect union of the yin and the yang. You know what I mean? They need each other, and then the man gets it through the woman, but the woman needs the man to liberate it. Can you correct that? Do I have that?
Yes, absolutely. I would absolutely agree with what you're saying. Yeah. So he's like the initiator of a woman's body. So this can come awaken in a woman's body, and when a woman gives this gift back to him, so you actually need, in my understanding of this, and I know it may upset some people, you need both. So, for example, even when I know some experiences that, for example, one man told me, who is actually quite well-known personality, but I'm not going to, and maybe name him, who went through this kind of experience by himself. But, he happened to be at that time in India, and it was a big festival of goddess Kali, and he saw images of goddess Kali, and suddenly, like, his body went through this powerful Kundalini awakening, and he felt
like, it was not a physical woman there, but
no, it was not a physical woman. It was like the energy was of goddess Kali, when he says, was everywhere. Okay, he's a scholar of Hinduism, but he's not a Hindu, and he just happened to be, I think it was Calcutta at this stage, And, it was Festival of Goddess Kali, and the images were everywhere. And I think he actually saw the images of the goddess, like as it was happening. And it was like a lightning, entering his body. So this is when a man experiences one example that is well documented, and I believe this man, he's a great scholar, that it happened to him without physical presence of a woman, but there was a definite feminine energy moving through him, which was somehow triggered by the festival of a very powerful goddess.
I'm so glad you said that, because the question I was interrupting you with, and apologies for that, was to go right there. My question was, you read my mind. I've been thinking, okay, so is it a polarity thing? Do you need the opposite polarity to liberate it? What about homosexuality? Two women together. Can a woman liberated in the other woman? Two men? I don't know. Like, do you need literally a woman DNA biology, the XY, and then, do you need the literal biological polarity, or is it just an energetic polarity, like one partner is more masculine than the other?
That's a very interesting question, and people ask me about it. And I genuinely am, because I'm a scholar, I'm not going to say something that I know when I don't, right? So I'm just going to say that I really don't know. The only sources that are in existence that I know of and studied are always about both masculine and feminine, a woman and a man.
Okay.
That whether this can be just translated into energies, like, for example, the feminine energy and masculine energy, even in a homosexual couple, perhaps it is possible. It is just, I have never seen a source talking about that, right?
We shall see.
But we shall see. It could be, like, it's quite possible, but maybe, I don't know. Because for me, I always think about it, this is just a personal point of view. It's not research based in the sense that I didn't read anywhere. Just from what I've read, I reached certain conclusions that it is more energy than anything else. But somehow this energy is more present in a female body, or easier awakened in a female body. For me, from what I've learned.
You mean the divine energy?
The Kundalini, the divine energy, yes. I consider Shakti Kundalini a divine energy.
Well, is it because she's the creative container, right? Maybe?
The creative container, and she's the goddess, and she's feminine. So she's feminine whether she's in a man's body or she's a woman's body, because Kundalini awakening is not something that women only have, men have this as well, but it is distinctively feminine energy. And with this, I would argue to always, it is a distinctively Kundalini energy is called actually in Hinduism Shakti Kundalini, which Shakti is a goddess, okay? So even in any tradition, Shiva is the masculine, Shakti is the feminine. So Kundalini by itself is feminine. By the name, by the grammatical expression of it in Sanskrit, it's the feminine. So if it is awakening in a man, it's still feminine. If it's awakening in a woman, it's still feminine. However, sources that I know so far are always talking about both masculine and feminine being needed. So for example, I know the Tantra Loka, right? So Tantra Loka is actually Brahmin priests, which was actually forbidden, would practice Kula ritual with women because they wanted this awakening. They couldn't do it despite that practice or whatever. They could get awakening maybe other ways. Do you understand? Like through meditation or rituals, because you can awaken in many ways. But to get an awakening of Shakti Kundalini via erotic means, they needed a woman. So I'm basing it on this particular tradition. And I have not found, other traditions that talk about other means, However, I will always say that Shakti Kundalini is a feminine energy, even if it awakens in men, and men do have, Kundalini awakening.
Okay, 2 questions. Why do you think it's only in the female of the species? Why wouldn't the divine put it in both? And then when you're saying it's a feminine energy, how does that present? Like what, as opposed to a masculine energy?
Okay, so the first question, it is present in both, right? So that's why I say a man can have a Kundalini, and men do have Kundalini awakenings. However, the Kundalini energy within a man is still the feminine thing, because it is a goddess energy just awakening the man.
But I mean, when we're saying the woman is the vessel,
Yes.
like the man can't or can, like, okay, going back to the
And the man
homosexual.
can. The man absolutely can. But when he awakens,
Yeah.
the energy that awakes him is the goddess energy.
Okay. The energy
Okay.
that's awakened is
That's right.
feminine.
That's right.
Okay. So then when it's a feminine, why? Like, what do you think why would it not be just, the union? Like, why would it be a feminine energy that's
Because it has this very distinct, when you experience is feminine, very sensual, feminine, wise. It just feels feminine. Also, the name, in Hinduism, Shakti is a goddess, Kundalini is a goddess. So this is the goddess energy that is awakening within us. So, and it has a distinctly feminine feeling, So it has but other very powerful, like she's just moving through you, and there's nothing you can do. Right? It's just moving through. So it's very powerful feminine. And in the other goddess, I was trying to explore it, because we really do not know what powerful feminine is unless it awakens in us. Because in the way we are being taught, we don't know the powerful feminine. Even the powerful women in our society, they are not really that much powerful feminine. There are very few of them. They are women who adapted men's way to be successful. I'm sorry, I'm being controversial again.
No, it's true.
It is very difficult to find an example of a woman who is empowered goddess-like. Okay, some women
Amen.
just
They were speaking my language. I've said that many times. Like, where are they?
Fantastic. So just because I sometimes, wonderful, a woman achieved something in a man's world, wonderful. But energetically doesn't change anything. It doesn't change anything for the world, because we are still living the same energy. We are still in the same paradigm, right? So this is, I love it, because it's a very powerful energy, and I'm talking about Shakti Kundalini, that is distinctly feminine, and it's difficult to explain why. It just is when you experience it. And yes, men experience it as well, but what they experience, it's not like a awakening of a masculine energy, which it may happen in some other ways. It is still awakening of a goddess energy within our bodies. And it actually makes perfect sense, because the smartest or the deepest psychologists, or actually psychoanalysts, like Carl Jung, Swiss psychoanalyst, right, from the 20th century, he was talking that both women and men have animus and anima, which is masculine, feminine energy at different ratios, right? So a man obviously can also have an awakening of Shakti Kundalini. However, it is the goddess, speaking to him. And that's why it can be also like this particular man who had it by himself, when he saw the images of goddess Kali, it was very deeply erotic. He had a full-on erection and everything, okay? So it wasn't like, So it is, and he knew that this feminine energy entered him.
I'm just like transfixed. Wow. Okay, so you've mentioned many times it felt wise. Joanna, what does that feel like? What is wise in your body? I'm just specifically using that word. It felt wise.
It felt wise, yes, because it did. And especially in this one particular moment of this process, of this erotic process, when it came out to my third eye, right, to my head, and it actually paused and it felt intentional. It
Right.
paused.
You said you felt it thinking. Yeah.
I keep thinking, okay, I'm just going to be very open about it. I'm just going to give her orgasm on, like, give her a full awakening. And then was thinking about it, and it was almost like, you know what? Let's give her the whole thing. And this is what happened. And it, exploded again. And
Blew the doors
on her man. And the man was this man was in a complete devotional mode at this moment, because he saw, like, what's going on through this woman's body, and he didn't even question it. He was just like,
well, I know you were glowing, but when you said what's going on, were you like vibrating? Like, were you like shaking?
It was just a glow, and the energy coming over was this deep, meditative, powerful, but meditative, like blissful, meditative energy. So he actually he sat down, and we meditated, basically. It's not like, oh, let's like sit in the meditation. It just happened. Like, we couldn't stop meditating, in a complete state of bliss. So it wasn't like, physically somehow, vibrating or anything. It was just that there was a light and there was a blissful, powerful, very meditative energy, significantly spiritual, not something, like orgasmic energy, that we both just spontaneously went into a prolonged meditation together, in quite unusual circumstances. So this is what was actually happening. It was deeply spiritual experiences triggered by an erotic act.
Which I find so amazing, because everything you're describing, it's like it was physical, but it wasn't physical. It was spiritual, but then it was mental, but then it was nothing that me, someone not experiencing it, put my finger on. Like, I'm like, did you vibrate? Like, I'm trying to grasp for straws. Like, it sounds like it just was its own unique thing. There's nothing really that we can compare it to in everyday life.
It was, but I just maybe to make it more easier for people to understand. So when I felt the energy movement, and now I still can feel it when I meditate often and so on, but in a much subtler way. Okay. It is, you actually do feel a movement in your body, energetic movement. It's like that's why it is portrayed as a serpent, right? Going around your spine, because I feel the movement. And for example, now when I meditate, especially if it's a good meditation, right? And I can actually relax, I actually, do this kind of, it moves me a little bit, right? It moves me like something like that. So I felt the movement, but the movement was within my body. I don't think it was perceptible for anybody else. So the movement, energetic movement, was happening in a very powerful way, and I couldn't stop it. I couldn't do anything about it, right? But it wasn't like, so I know, because some people have Kundalini awakening that, the whole body is frowning, in convulsions and so on. That has not happened to me. So what happened to me during the first awakening, when I was initiated with this particular tradition, wasn't just it was a ritual of initiation that I experienced before. So this is what happened to me a little bit then, because I started, actually, it was, when I said it was very dramatic, I started to cry, when I started to laugh. I felt like space collapsed on me and then expanded infinitely. But, I was starting to do something with my hands, and apparently somebody was telling me that I was doing Hindu mudras, and I didn't know anything about it then.
Whoa.
And I was just like, so this was like very dramatic. I cannot repeat it because I didn't know what I was doing. And I come out of this exhausted, emotionally exhausted. And everybody was like, wow, I wish I had this experience, because there were 200 people. And I would never put myself through this, through this.
Right. Wow. That's like the people who cross over and they speak a different language and they come back and like, how did you know that language? I don't know that language.
That's right. So this was happened first time, and the second time during an erotic encounter, it was very powerful, but it was happening within my body. And I don't know, because I didn't see myself from outside, but I didn't have any convulsions. I didn't, it felt peaceful, but I felt it was moving through me. Well, what could be perceived externally is the light around me, and also the fact that the blissful energy that spilled upon him, and he just went into meditation. And we both meditated. So it was the bliss, but like a powerful meditative bliss, the movement, and the light. So these are the only kind of external points of reference.
I believe you had mentioned in the first experience you felt grief at first.
Yes.
Do you know what that was all about? Why do you think you felt grief before the bliss?
I have no idea. It almost like if I can put into words, because it was so powerful and it was so sudden, I was just, it for me, that was like a, like a lightning hitting me. So, but if I want to rationalize now, it feels like I almost grieved for all the suffering in the world. And then I started to see it's just like, it's just like, it's just a play of consciousness, it's just temporary. So I had this kind of one realization after another, but it wasn't even realization, because it was happening in such a fast way, and it was so powerful emotionally and experientially, that now I'm just kind of trying to explain this in rational words. And that's why I think first everything collapsed on me, like I suddenly, and then it expanded. The same room, I saw the same room, the same people, except that it was infinite. Right? So
it sounds like a death. It's to me that sounds like what would happen when we die, maybe.
Maybe because I'd never had near-death experience, but it was something and for me, it was the energy, you know, the energy was showing us that we are so much more, that the reality we are perceiving is so much different, that this is not this material reality. That's why I don't believe in the whole matrix simulation thing. I think it's a big BS, you know.
You do.
I think you guys, you know, I think it's BS. So because I saw when I was awake, I saw that this is a beautiful, beautiful place, you know, filled with living energy, you know, that is pulsating with living energy, colors, and there are like particles of energy and waves of energy moving everywhere around me and through me. And for some reason, and I think this is what I discuss in my other book, Alien Goddess, I think something we closed off this part of our mind somewhere early in our development. And we are so fully focused on our rational, logical mind, which is also, I call the masculine mind, that we actually can't see the beauty, you know, and an expansion. And only through some people, like it happened to me through this, you know, from my awakening. Some people make from meditation, some people use DMT, you know, ayahuasca, to get this mind-blowing experience, because then you see like, wow, this reality is amazing. There's so much that I don't see in my normal state. It's almost like we contracted. And there are lots of philosophies, you know, that actually say that the story of humanity is the story of contraction, of descent into, and this is what I discuss in Alien Goddess as well, that all goddess traditions say that the goddess descended actually. You know, something contracted. She was, thank you. She was strict, you know?
Tell us about that.
So, okay, so whether we speak about the tradition of goddess Inanna, or when we talk about Demeter and Persephone, which is the Eleusinian mysteries.
That's in my course.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So that's good.
Love it.
And also if we talk about Piscis Sophia, which talks about goddess Sophia, which I dissect, you know, in detail in Alien Goddess, because it is a extremely difficult work to read. It's almost like you try not to lose your mind when you read Piscis.
Thank you for doing that for the rest of us.
Because I'm telling you, I don't know how I did it.
I don't know how you did it. You're brilliant. I don't know. Or maybe that's why you had all those awakenings. So you were able to do it.
I'm telling you, there's no way I could do it.
Exactly. Because all I'm thinking is, why did this woman get two? I mean, there's a reason why this is happening. Maybe because you're the vessel to bring forth this for the rest of us.
I am telling you, there's no way in the world that I write, especially this other book, Alien Goddess, and dissect every goddess tradition, explaining what's going on my own.
And you did it in a way that the layperson can understand. God bless you. God is blessed.
But I'm telling you, I'm not that good. You know what I mean? Like,
no, you are, but you're too humble. Well, you channeled it.
Yeah, like somebody told me, do this, and you know, I did it. So I just you know, was committed. And completely committed to this, but I wasn't alone when I was doing it.
Yeah, but I think if I can just interject that for the rest of us to maybe try to extrapolate this to our own experiences is what we have here is somebody who you were laying the groundwork though. You were doing the work. Yeah, it came through you and all that, but you were like boots on the ground and you invited it in. Your intention, you were open to it. You know what I mean? I've heard you say you met all the criteria. So you laid the soil for it to be able to happen and come through you, which I think is a very important thing for all of us to notice.
Yes, that's right. So it's quite interesting. Thank you for putting it this way, because this was exactly that. I am very ardent seeker, and I was not seeking particular experiences. So like I didn't like want Kundalini experience or something. I just, you know, I want to know, this is interesting. I cannot stop reading about it. I cannot stop studying about it. And I'm very committed. So before it happened, even first of all, I studied Vedanta, which is, you know, Hindu scriptures every day, because it gave me guidance for life that my own religion, which is Catholic religion, didn't give me, right? So I have nothing against Catholicism. You know, I'm very grateful because it gave me spirituality. But, you know, it didn't give me other answers. So this is what I was doing, like for my own sanity. And then when I meet this particular spiritual teacher, you know, who comes from Shaivite tradition, Kashmir Shaivism, this philosopher Abhinavagupta that I mentioned from the 10th century is from this tradition. I read everything that is possible on this. So, for example, there's one book I read 7 times, right?
Wow.
And if you look at my books, like I have a passionate relationship with them. Everything is highlighted. I don't like people treat a book as a form of
me too.
art.
I
Yeah.
know, Martha.
And for me, it is like, like we have a serious relationship, I
Yes.
mean, and it's like in different colors.
Yes.
And so I did this, and I did it with reverence and commitment, and I didn't actually rationalize it. It was just a strong drive, and I did that. And that somehow somebody, decided, I think maybe she's ripe for some of it. So that's why I'm also a strong proponent of the idea of grace, right? Because you prepare yourself and grace comes on its own terms. So it's frustrating sometimes, right?
So interesting. Oh my gosh. Okay, so sexuality and spirituality, and the female being the vessel or the stargate to tap into the divine, with the idea that this is why organized religions have controlled the narrative of the feminine. The role, you mentioned you grew up a Catholic, as did I, and I don't have the latest statistic, but we all know a very large percent of the world's population is. And what's blaringly missing in the Holy Trinity, as we all know, is the feminine. We have the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost. Some say the Holy Ghost is the feminine. I've heard that argument.
Definitely. I can prove it to you
Okay,
scientifically.
tell us what you think about that.
Because it used to be Father, Son, and Sophia, but then when it was translated from Greek to Latin, it was neutered into Spiritus Sanctus, which in Latin is masculine. So that's just a simple translation.
Once again, a translation problem. I mean,
Yeah, and it's interesting, but it always goes one way. Didn't you notice?
yeah, good point. That's so interesting. That's a very good
Yeah.
point. Okay. All right. So obviously the argument is this is why they controlled it, because my goodness, we couldn't have everyday people just accessing the divine, and I mean, we'd have total anarchy, right? Or what are your thoughts on maybe the motivation there?
So this is actually, I think, the main theme for the other goddess, right? And that's why I thought that Mary Magdalene is in the same lineage, by the way, of all of these goddesses, because I looked into the lineage of goddesses such as Inanna, Ishtar, Hathor, Isis, and I thought Mary Magdalene was the last known representative of this tradition as a goddess, or embodied goddess. So of erotic and secret knowledge. And I think that something happened, and I elaborated in it also in Alien Goddess, that something happened and this development was stopped and the masculine energies took over. And don't get me wrong, because I don't have problem with masculine energies. I love masculine energies as well. It is just that the focus tend to be solely on a rational, logical mind. And let me just say it, and that's why I'm blatantly against artificial intelligence, because I believe it's a child of an engineering mind, and it's soulless. And it's soulless, and it's dangerous to the natural world. It's dangerous for humanity, and it completely disregards divine feminine. And I will never compromise on that.
I've never considered it what you just said. I mean, I know I totally with you on the soulless, but I never thought of the fact that it does. It completely disregards the divine feminine.
Absolutely, because what they want to do are kind of reproduce, giving you a robotic body, right? And they say that it's immortality. Then you don't need a womb. And also it is a child, it is a child of an engineering mind, because it doesn't care for intuition, doesn't care for emotion, just pretending emotions, right? And so on. Doesn't have a soul, and so on. So I think it's actually completely, it's evil as far as I'm concerned. Not AI itself, because it's a child of a human mind, but of the creators who are doing this, who are creating this. I actually believe, because I also study Gnostic works, that, we are in a struggle between good and evil. And these people are actually working with some forces, because I don't believe that they would come up with something like that by themselves, that are working against humanity and all natural world. And, the goddess, so in Hinduism is, it is Parashakti or Prakriti. Creation is the feminine. Creation is the feminine. So it is against creation, It is against the beautiful natural world that surrounds us, the wisdom of the natural world. Like, you have 4 dogs, I have a dog too. You know that deep wisdom. They're much more emotionally intelligent than any human being I know.
They're my best teachers.
Yeah, they're very wise teachers. So they want to completely disconnect us from that. And it's already happening with young people and so on. So that's a completely separate topic. But what happens, so for example, what happened when we speak about Eleusine and mysteries and Demeter and Persephone, there's a story there that Demeter, after her daughter was kidnapped, right, which is quite interesting. It says
By her uncle.
evil seduction, actually. And she actually came from Crete, which Crete was a Minoan civilization, pre-Greek civilization, that, Cyclones, which is a pre-Greek gods and goddesses civilization, where different beings were kind of ruling it. And then, the Greek civilization came. And, I love, like anybody else, like your show is about Aphrodite, Greek gods and goddesses and so on. But this is when the suppression really started.
Oh. At the time of the myth.
Yeah, the time of the myth, and this is when, Zeus does whatever he wants. In the other goddess, I discussed, Homeric hymn to Aphrodite.
Yes.
That she was very powerful, but as time progresses, she is this kind of caricature of Britney Spears or Marilyn Monroe. Completely beautiful, pretty, but completely disempowered. She was not created this way.
She was originally powerful.
She was very powerful. He was afraid of her because, so because of her kind of feminine power, so to speak, not because. So what happened there, gradually, and I don't know why, but gradually, the feminine aspect of our consciousness, I'm not talking about being women or men,
Yep.
our consciousness, that is both, even women and men, was discarded. And also for some reason, because I think traditional religions understand that the feminine is powerful, but they consider it wild. It's very difficult to control. Like, I
yes.
couldn't control Kundalini energy. It's not like you say, okay, let's stop it now. No, it's moving through you, and it's powerful, it's wild, and it's difficult to control. So they did everything to make sure that it is subordinate. So what we end up with now, and I'm again being controversial, it is that not only we don't have really a true powerful feminine, or it's very rare, because I don't believe that political leaders that are women and so on are feminine in the least energetically. They're just
Can't think
men.
of one.
Yeah, we're just survived in men's world by following men's rules, right?
Exactly.
So, but also the feminine became debilitated, manipulative, and very often toxic because it knows its power but has no means of expressing it.
Right.
So we have to liberate this power because it's wise, it is powerful, and it needs to express itself. Right? So we have to express it within structures that are supportive of it, not limiting of it, because otherwise it can become dangerous. Do you understand? Because it
needs an outlet.
Yeah.
Yes. So what you're saying is it finds an outlet that's actually destructive. Rather. So what would be a productive outlet?
So this is very interesting. So a productive outlet, I think we all have to look into the feminine in ourselves, call upon the goddess, call upon the goddess yourself, discover your intuition. Intuition always speaks in very soft voice. It is the reason that is, bullying the intuition, right? It's always loud. Ego is loud. Reason is loud. It is very soft. Like, for example, I assume you're a devotee of Aphrodite. Call upon the name of the goddess and ask her to guide you, So I have this beautiful mantra that if you can, I can send you It's
Please.
6 minutes. It's on my YouTube channel, and it is
Please.
Goddess Sundari. Goddess Sundari is a Hindu version of Aphrodite.
Yep.
And except, and she is very powerful. But now again, there is a public effort to discredit her because, the dubious massage parlors are called Sundari, beauty products are called Sundari. When she is Lalita Tripura Sundari, she rules the three worlds. So this is this mantra which my friend from Magical Egypt series put music to. But I can, if you want, I can tell you this mantra, and perhaps even it's a good way of, finishing it. It is like, maybe we should close our eyes.
Okay.
A deep breath. Let's call upon this powerful, sensual, wise goddess that rules the world. Om Lalita Tripura Sundari Soham. 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 Hrim, hrim, hrim. And as we are saying these words, or maybe if you listen to the mantra, that perhaps you can put in the link, you don't have to be still, because Goddess Sundari or Goddess or Shakti Kundalini is moving. You can dance to this, you can move your body to this. It's a different form of meditation. So I think that we all have to collectively and individually call upon this powerful goddess, ask us in prayers to express herself through us, so that we can collectively move the world in the better direction, because we are going into a very dark direction. And I think one naive person who would disagree with this. And it is not because feminine is better than masculine, but it is that masculine reach his limit by itself. And this limit is dangerous. It's world destruction and artificial intelligence. And unless we awaken and evolve the feminine so it can be equal to him,
Counterbalance it. Yeah.
counterbalance it, we are not going anywhere. No political structure, no activism will help. We have to balance it with the feminine. And the only way to balance it with the feminine, because it was intended this way, right, originally, it is to ask for the goddess, where the goddess, where other goddesses are just archetypes of a goddess, right? Archetype of a goddess through which you want to express yourself, and ask her, to be the vessel without losing your, by the way, identity, to be a vessel for this divine expression as you, goddess as you. So I assume that for you it is Goddess Aphrodite.
It's
Right?
funny. That sounds like one of my morning prayers. Yep.
So that's
Be
fantastic. So
a living expression of the goddess.
yeah, living expression of this, because, and it's, it is not some kind of narcissistic thing. The world needs it. Like, we are not going anywhere good without it.
I was just to say, we might be going somewhere, but it's nowhere we want to go.
That's right.
What were the words you were saying in that mantra? What language was that?
Om Lalita Tripura Sundari Soham. So Sundari is the goddess. So Lalita, it means the play of consciousness. Tripura of the three worlds.
Was that Hindu? What was the?
Yeah, it's Sanskrit.
A Sanskrit. Okay. And you mentioned that when you started it, you mentioned that because she was the one who created the world.
Prakriti. So Parashakti. So this is, so actually the world was created through the union again between the masculine and the feminine in Hinduism.
That's where I was going. The union.
Yeah,
okay.
the union, that's right. So Shiva is like the consciousness that is in deep meditation.
Yeah.
So it's like the universe before the Big Bang.
Yep.
And Shakti is the one that brings life to everything. Right? So he is a corpse in esoteric Hinduism. He's a corpse without Shakti, because he's just a consciousness that is in deep meditation, almost like unawakened by it, means not enlivened consciousness.
Enlivened. Yep. Yep.
And yes, thank you, enlivened. So she is there and she dances creation into life, right? So he is like a screen and she is the dancer on the screen.
She's like the electricity.
So
that's
everything
flowing.
that we perceive is her, right? And he's like, the screen upon which she dances into creation, right? But you need both.
You need both. This is such an important message. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned in your book the other goddess about what you call the fall of Aphrodite, and because it's always it's bothered me because the Greek mysteries and all, they're all seeped in patriarchy, so it's hard for me to really take them too seriously. I mean, the whole thing with the apple and Paris, and it's like, give me a break. They're goddesses, like they care what these mortals think. I don't know, but. I find that you're comparing her to Ionata and Hathor, and then Radha.
Oh, Radha as well, which is a Hindu expression of her.
Yeah.
So, but Radha kind of is everybody loves Radha, especially men, actually,
Consort.
because
Yeah.
because she kind of goes into spiritual surrender. So she is
Perfect.
Yeah, so spiritual surrender. So she's just always in the bliss, waiting for her beloved, right?
Lovely.
Yeah.
Everybody's dream come true. Okay, I know we're running up on time. You have to share with us quickly why you are not a fan of the term sacred prostitute, which I love your thoughts on, because this is a very important point for everybody. And I know we didn't get into Mary Magdalene at all. So if you just want to give the main bullet points to clear up a lot of the misconception about that poor creature. And then it's related to this idea of sacred prostitution, which is going around now, that people are saying, well, there were sacred prostitutes and women were, performing sexual acts, for the purpose of helping men awaken and all that. So just, can you share with us your thoughts on that? Because it's very important.
Yes, first of all, none of them were prostitutes. They were priestesses in the temples, right? Mary Magdalene was not a prostitute, and it's scripturally proven, so so it's not just my opinion. In fact, she was not considered a prostitute until the 6th century when one pope made a scriptural mistake. So anyway, if you want, you can check it in the
that's such an important point. I mean,
Yes.
I just got to reiterate, one pope translated the scripture incorrectly. How many years later? Like after her death?
500 years later, so it's in
500 years after this person died.
He misinterpreted. He didn't translate. He misinterpreted. He just equated Mary Magdalene with nameless woman from the scripture, and he also said that this woman had to be a prostitute when actually there is no mention of a prostitute in the whole Bible. She's called a sinner. So a sinner could be somebody in Jewish tradition didn't pay the taxes, for example,
Right.
or maybe ate during the Sabbath. Like somebody. So there is no prostitute whatsoever, right? And this prostitute was never called Mary Magdalene. Even if there was a prostitute somewhere, which there wasn't, she was never called Mary Magdalene. So there's a whole misinterpretation of this, So
Incredible.
And I think this is again this women, that's not true, because sometimes it is kind of under cover of the sacred prostitute is used under the cover of, for example, some how do you call it, harvest rituals and so on, fertility rituals.
Okay.
Which is actually not that. Like Demeter is also not about, I read it in Alien Goddess, about harvesting or about fertility or anything like that. Not at all. This is it was always about the sacred union of masculine and feminine, and there was no prostitution evolved in that, right? I'm sure there were prostitutes, but actually when we talk about prostitution, very often in Gnosticism, prostitution is being seen as fall from grace, or exactly this forgetting your own greatness. And then we all prostitute having like jobs, paying bills, right? So this is like forgetting your own greatness is a mental prostitution. So it's all allegorical. So for example, when we talk about goddess Sophia and so on, but it's a completely different discussion. However, it is complete misunderstanding, and it is kind of self-indulgent patriarchal interpretation that has nothing
Convenient.
very convenient to again vilify feminine sensuality and actually the gift of female eroticism that contributed to our conscious awakening.
Well, and I was just going to add that her important role in being a partner to the teacher, to Jesus.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yes.
they totally discredited her the feminine role in that whole life.
Right.
And
And Gnostic Gospels are giving her the credit back, so I'm really glad. And as in both books, the other goddess and alien goddess, but especially actually much more even in alien goddess, I discussed the Gospel of Mary Magdalene and I dissected into pieces. And I know that other people wrote about it, but I think people overlooked some serious things there.
yeah, you picked up
So-
on a lot of stuff that I hadn't heard before.
So I if people are interested, this is the to go and have a look at it. And she definitely, actually, Jesus, thank you. Jesus gave 3 levels of teachings according to the Gnostics. One to people, like fishermen and farmers around the Lake of Galilee. One to his disciples, and one to his most advanced disciples, who were, developed enough to receive esoteric teachings. And as far as you know, Mary Magdalene was the only one. However, in a Catholic tradition, they said, no, the beloved disciple couldn't be this, whore, right?
Right.
So it had to be John. So they went immediately into this masculine, kind of, but no, she was the beloved disciple. I'm sorry, gentlemen. So she was the beloved, and Gnostic Gospels, including Gospel of Philip, and the Gospel
Thomas.
of yes, pick up on this. Yes.
I mean, there are some people that don't even know what the Council of Nicaea is. They don't even know that there are actually gospels missing from the Bible compilation. I mean, I would say the majority don't. I didn't know that till a few years ago. I mean, and I'm no spring chicken, like people, the masses just have no idea. They have no idea any of this. So hopefully your work is going to be a big part of let's just say, the awakening.
Thank you so much, Amy. Thank you.
I have a feeling it
just is. Like we were saying in the beginning of the show, I mean, the way I'm just so grateful. I mean, there's no other words. You did a lot of the heavy lifting for the rest of us. And I hope there's more books coming in you. Do you have another book coming?
I just wrote this one 3 months ago.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Alien Goddess was published 3 months
That's brand
ago.
new. Okay, yeah, I haven't.
It's brand
I'm on.
new.
Yeah. Okay.
That's still
Sorry. You
recovering.
need to go on a long break. Let me.
I need
let's
to go on a long break and yes,
track
I
that
have
question.
another book in mind, but I actually have no mental energy to work on it.
Yeah. So a couple years down the road, you're no rush. Yeah. You have to replenish and
Yeah.
wow, just incredible. So as we close here, your work now, do you consider, like, because I know you have courses and I know you lecture and you're in Australia. Is your work primarily as an author? Are you doing other things with your?
Okay, so I'm a tenured academic, so I'm a senior lecturer.
Oh,
So this is my kind of a day job, right?
okay.
And then otherwise I'm primarily an author and researcher, and I also have a small YouTube channel, and I have some courses on my website. One
Okay.
is about Mary Magdalene, and one is about goddesses of Eros, and I plan to do more. Now at the moment I'm doing lots of interviews, and I did because I finished the other goddess, and when I finished promoting it, and when I wrote Alien Goddess, I'm kind of feel like I am jumping out of a fast train.
Yeah.
Right?
You need to come up for air.
Yeah, I have to come up for air at the moment. So apart from being academic, I'm primarily, in my own eyes, primarily an author and a researcher. And the reason why I call myself spiritual detective, it is because
Yeah, I love that.
this is the real, actually what I do, kind of spiritual detective, author, philosopher, but because I'm focused on spiritual things that perhaps are overlooked or misinterpreted, that's why I thought detective was a good term. And it also is good for your ego, so you don't feel, too highly about yourself, right?
That's true. Keep it in check.
That's right. Good to keep it.
Okay. 3 final quick questions. They'll only take a moment. Tell us quickly the pre-Kundalini Awakening Joanna and the post-Kundalini Awakening Joanna in a nutshell. What would you say? How you're different?
I think that it's not that simple because I was always very ardent seeker. I think from my early, maybe mid-30s.
Mm-hmm.
So the difference is, and that maybe the difficulty of awakening, maybe, shall I say. The difficulty of awakening was that I was always driven, and I'm still very driven, but I was always driven, kind of ambition driven.
Right.
And after the, yes.
Sorry, that's me. Hello. That's why my show is Awakening Aphrodite. Yes.
Yeah.
please
So, and now after the awakening, I had to, and it was a very painful process because I am driven and I am ambitious. Let go of this because I realized that my path is more alternative. So I could very easily follow in my academically steps for, promotion and so on. Just follow, some procedures. It's very easy. You just do what you ask to do and so on. And I had to let it go. So I'm still, professionally an academic. But I don't move on faster, on this because I decide I didn't make a decision actually. It is unstoppable. I had to commit myself to this work. So this is the main difference between Joanna, still extremely driven, still, very, very good researcher. I'll give it to myself, and still like obsessive about, writing beautifully and so on. But now it moved from ambition, I want to be a famous writer to, I really have to investigate this and I have to share it with people. So that's the main.
Love it. What a blessing. What a blessing. That's incredible.
But it's a process because, ego doesn't want to give up easily.
No,
You
ego
just have
doesn't.
to surrender. So I had to just surrender, right?
Ego's fighting you every step of the way, no question about it. But take a back seat, Jack.
Okay, so what does the goddess want us to know, Joanna? The everyday woman listening to this who's got at least one job, probably a couple kids, feeling overwhelmed, can't have time for herself, can barely grab a cup of tea, goes to the bathroom, the kid's knocking on the door, the dogs need to go out, blah, blah, blah. What does the goddess want her to know?
That you are invaluable, that without you, nothing happens. And that under these extreme circumstances that pretty much every woman lives, right, taking care of everything all the time, ask for grace to have some time for yourself when you can completely, I'm sorry, the goddess wants you to know that you have to have boundaries.
Thank you.
That, this is my time. And now this is somebody else's job to make sure that kids are fed and the house is not set on fire. But these 20 minutes are mine, and do whatever practice that like going out for a walk in nature, whatever, going to a cafe, having a coffee or a chai and writing in your journal. These 20 minutes are sacred because you matter. Now this is your time to embody the goddess. You're not a machine, that society ascribes, these roles to us. And then if you don't take care of yourself, you don't take care of anyone, even if you want to be carer, right? Also, another thing I would say, there are many ways to be a goddess. And I know I'm going to upset everybody. I don't know why I'm like that. But
We don't care.
Being a mother and a carer is not the only way to be a goddess. Like I chose the path of wisdom, for example, of adventure. Like there is also Artemis, there is Athena, or
One of my favorites, Artemis.
Yeah, that's right. So there are these other goddesses, even from a Greek pantheon, which is very limiting sometimes because Athena is not very particularly feminine, right?
Yes.
So that's my issue with her. So you can choose. You don't have to follow, which archetype of the divine feminine you want to embody. The rules are yours. You set the rules, And it doesn't mean that, for example, I do not honor the mother archetype. I totally do. But I'm saying it is often presented as the only archetype.
That's right.
But it is not.
One. Yep.
but it's not. Or you may feel, I've done my mothering thing, now I want to embody another archetype. You're not bound for life to one archetype, right? So I want you to know that you have choices, that you need to have boundaries, that you matter, and you have to take care of yourself, and you need at least 20 minutes, to connect with the goddess by yourself.
Fabulous, fabulous. Kind of the last question is kind of related to that. Maybe that is the answer to it, but it was going to be, I don't know if you have any more to add or maybe a nuance, is how can we actually awaken Aphrodite in us, the goddess in us? I mean, you mentioned about 20 minutes journaling perhaps, or walk in nature, but are there anything else? I mean, just more of like that what you explained in the beginning, that embodied sensuality, wisdom, glow. How can we kind of awaken that more in ourselves?
So for me, the mantra works, on the Lalita, Tripura Sundari Saham. It is because she enters you, and you feel like you want to move your body as you just say the mantra, right? Or you listen to the mantra, you don't have to say the mantra, right?
I saw colors when you were saying, I was seeing.
Yeah, because it is an actually goddess, Sundari is like an orange color.
Yeah, movement.
So it's a little bit of a fiery color. But also, do not fall into this, archetypes of beauty, for example, that are externally, but are actually not very feminine. It's a completely different, they're actually against female body again. Yeah. So feel like I feel the goddess within me. My body is embodiment of the goddess as it is now, not when I lose 30 pounds, when I,
Right.
yes, in a gym, going every day. As it is now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't take care of yourself and your health, right? But you already embody the goddess, right? And now, how can I embody it better? It's a different question, but you already it. You don't have to fit into anything else, right? You already this, and all esoteric traditions are telling you you're already it. You just have to, take away the layers like an onion of nonsense, of inculturation, or acculturation, or of everything, of dogmas about what it means to be a woman, right? Or a goddess even. So you are already this. And just say, I'm already this, she's already within me, I'm already her. And now, how can I express her better? It's very different, like, how will I get into the goddess? You already have it.
There you go.
You've got it. Yeah. And I'll give you an example, but maybe just because I'm sorry, I have to go now.
Yes, please.
Because it's morning here for me, right?
Yes. I could keep you here all day, but go ahead. Yeah.
Once you embody this sense of I am a goddess already, you are a babe. You're a total babe. Because I remember this moment, I felt like I woke up and I did my Sundari mantra and I put on this like faint pink dress, not pink, but like kind of soft pink dress. And I went to, went for a walk towards the beach, and I had no makeup. I don't know if I combed my hair, and I felt like Aphrodite was me. Boom. And guess what? Everybody was like turning their heads, like, whoa, people feel the energy. You don't need makeup. You don't need, beautiful dresses. You understand? It's within you, this energy. You just have to connect with it in a way that you have to awaken it, but it's already within you, but it helps to call upon it. For example, for me, mantra really works.
This has blown my mind. It's a million times better than I even hoped it could be. I think you just dropped so much great stuff. Thank you so very much. Again, Awakening Aphrodite podcast on YouTube. You can see the books right here, The Other Goddess and Alien Goddesses, and absolutely must read for anybody who wants to understand any of this stuff and half of their being, which is the feminine in you, and a little bit of our history to understand our present and our future. Amazing. Thank you, everyone. That'll be in the show notes. Tell us where they can find your courses and your work, your website, please.
Yeah, so my website is joannakujawa.com. So it's Joanna, JOANNA, KUJAWA.com. So, and actually, if you Google me, you'll find me.
Yes, you will. And those will be in the show notes for everybody. And two last things. Guess what? We have two major things in common that are very personal for me. My middle name is Joanne.
Oh, wow.
Similar to yours. And my beloved soul pet before the 4 dogs I had now, of 14 years, that was my life companion, was named Charlotte.
Oh my goodness, because my dog is called Charlotte. That's
Your
amazing.
dog is Charlotte.
And when I read that, I almost just fell right on the floor. I was just like, I've never heard anybody with a dog named Charlotte. And now Charlotte's popular because the queen or whatever has a baby.
It wasn't even why I called her.
That's right. Well, no, me neither. I mean, well, my dog was 14 years old, way before she had her kids. So that name was not heard of. But when I saw your dog was named Charlotte, I was like, what is happening here? This is nuts.
Yes.
So I just had to share that with you, my friend.
Thank you. It's lovely.
Yes.
Okay, this has been incredible. I'm going to let you go and start your day because you're in Australia. It's early in the morning. It's late here at night. Everybody, I know you enjoyed it. You know what to do. Share it with a friend. Leave a comment. Leave a review. Please check out Joanna's site, her work, her course. Get her books and let us know what you think. We'll see you next time on Awakening Aphrodite. Bye-bye.